Good morning, everyone. This is Gene. I have RJ with me. Say hi, RJ. Hi, RJ. Staring into the camera. So I just wanted to start off the video with something cute since I'm going to be covering a fairly heavy topic. So that's why I thought, okay, start with the cute. Kind of ease people into it. Good boy. All right, RJ, I'm going to let you go. Go. Okay, so kitty fan service over. So I was watching, well, first of all, before I get started with all that, good morning to everybody, or at least it's the morning where I am in New York. It's a little after 8 a.m., so whether it's day, night, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, I hope you're well. And as always, thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, for leaving comments. It sincerely humbles me that I have an audience at all, right? This isn't exactly a high-tech studio, yet you guys seem to, guys and girls I should say, keep coming back for more. So thank you. And whether this is your first video or your 100th, I hope that you continue to enjoy the content. And the kitty in the background. He likes his window time. But anyway, the point of this video. This is actually a sort of unplanned video. I wasn't planning to make a video today, but that's how I at times do some of my best work. But anyhow, I was in the comments, I was looking through the comments of a Clownfish TV video, and people were talking to them and leaving the comments like, you have to comment on this trailer, this Netflix trailer called Cuties, Sexualizing kids, and all this other stuff. And then I saw that Heel vs. Babyface did a video on it. So I was like, okay, this seems to be something relatively big. Let me check it out for myself. So I watched the trailer for this. Apparently it's a French film, right? That they're airing with subtitles on Netflix. And from best I can tell, it seems to be about a possibly Muslim. I'm not quite sure. I just noticed that she has it looks like the headscarf, the hijab. So maybe she's Muslim, I don't know, or some similar faith. But this let's just say very conservative, possibly religious young girl getting involved with a 11-year-old dance troupe. And by 11-year-old, I don't mean has been in existence for 11 years. I mean, the dancers are 11-year-old girls. Which maybe in and of itself wouldn't be too bad because, you know, young girls like to dance, they take dance classes, that's nothing new. I knew plenty of girls when I was around that age of 10, 11, 12 years old who liked to dance. In fact, one of my cousins loved to dance back in those days. But it's not just that. Apparently, they're doing stuff in dancing, right? Like the dance moves that they're doing is like twerking and stuff, and this all other type of like highly adult, highly sexualized dancing and style of dress, like tight pants, crop tops, and I'm like, a bit too much to my taste. So my immediate opinion of it was, okay, I don't like this, it's sexualizing kids, right? And no. Right, so I could just end the video right here, right? But I wanted to ask myself more than that. I wanted to ask myself, and I did ask myself, why? Why is this bothering me? Why does this make me uneasy? When I had no issue in even in a way defended Cardi B and her right to create, you know, these very dirty sexual songs like WAP, right? Wet ass. So I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it. So here's the conclusion I've come to, as best as I can reason at this moment. It could change, nothing is set in stone. And I want to be clear, this is not in favor of this. I do think that it's terribly inappropriate to be having teenagers, right? Especially young teenagers. It's a little different if we're talking about like 16, 17-year-olds because they're close to adulthood, at least legal adulthood, right? 18. But when you're talking about characters who, in the context of the story, are supposed to be 11 years old and they're in a twerk dance crew. Not like, for example, watching a music video featuring an adult woman like, say, Beyonce twerking and then they think it's cool and they want to copy it. Right? It's not that type of thing, which I could understand. I'm talking about 11-year-old, or at least in the story, the actual performers are probably a little bit older. Right? That tends to be the case with Hollywood or just movies in general, is that, for example, if you have people who are playing teenagers, right, 16, 17, 15, the actors themselves are usually in their early 20s, right? So there tends to be a bit of an age gap, a bit of an age discrepancy between the actor's actual age and the age of the characters in the context of the work, right? So, still, you have teenagers who are, I would assume, in most instances, under the age of at least 16, doing these highly sexualized dances and dressing in a very sexually suggestive, provocative way that maybe doesn't really bat an eye when it's seen on a person who's, say, in their 20s, but is very disturbing, and at least for me, uncomfortable to watch when you look at a character who's supposed to be an 11-year-old, right? And here's what I have come to, at least this is best I understand it. While I grew up in a very hypersexual youth culture, looking back on in the 1990s, right? 1990s was all about, bleeding on that edge and all that stuff, right? It was, the media back then was incredibly, for its day, violent and very sexual because it was all about pushing boundaries. But when I think about that, and perhaps it's my own biases talking, to be fair, but when I think about that, what I remember is that while very adult and especially sexual content was easily available and seen, right, by underage kids like myself at that time, that media was not necessarily directed at us or involving us. The best way I can describe it is like, I said in the Cardi B video that, Paula Abdul released a song back in the day called Cold Hearted Snake, right? And while the lyrics are nothing risqué, the video is basically a dance orgy, which it is. But the difference is that the video features adults. Everybody in that video, from Paula herself to her dancers, to the, I guess you could say, judges that they're performing in front of, everyone's an adult, right? They're not, there are no kids in this video. It's not children having this, erotic orgy to dance music. And when I looked back at a lot of the videos or a lot of the songs that were popular at that time, right, they weren't, again, kids had access to it because it was easy to find and easy to hear because it was always on radio or on Jesus Christ, MTV. So I'm not saying that it was necessarily hidden from a minor audience. It wasn't. But at the same time, it was not overtly or directly intended for that audience, if that makes any sense. Right? They were not using, at least not to my knowledge, child performers in those videos, right? Those songs were not intended for minors, unless you're R. Kelly. But that's a different story entirely, right? But songs like If by Janet Jackson, very sexual song, but she was not singing toward a minor child. She was singing about a man, right? A grown man. And many other things. So I think for me, that's a big issue. It's like, okay, these things that I grew up seeing while yes, not appropriate for me to have seen at a very young age, they did not involve children. Like, you think about like the same sex girl on girl kiss in like Star Trek, DS9, right? Or the whole Gabrielle romance, right? Yes, stuff that yeah, a kid under the age of 13 at least should not be seen, but it didn't involve children, right? It wasn't two minors making out on screen for everybody to watch, right? It wasn't like that. They used adults. It was adult situations, right? And it was intended mostly, I'll say, for an adult audience, right? They weren't marketing their stuff toward kids, right? Like the hero of DS9, your main character, right, is an older man, a soldier who's lost his wife, has a son. It's not a 15-year-old boy, right? So there's that. But on the other hand, to be fair, on the other hand, there have long been, especially in music, in the American music scene, teenage performers, and even when they're still teenagers, they do sexualize their image. I think of, say, Usher, right? I'm old enough to remember when Usher was only 15 years old with songs like "You Make Me Wanna Leave the One I'm With," "Start a New Relationship with You," and all this other stuff. I remember his videos from back then. And I also remember how he was what? He definitely wasn't 18. He may have been like 15, 16 at that time. But it's got him strutting around with his shirt open, right? Showing off his abs and everything, right? To make the predominantly female teenage audience that would be watching him, you know, very interested, let's say, right? Or you had Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, especially Britney, right? I think she was only, what, 16 when, wrong one. Hit me, baby, one more time. When that song came out, right? And she's in the sexier version with the twisty top and all that of the schoolgirl uniform. So, so at the same time, American media, in particular, music and TV, does have a history of sexualizing technically minors, right, under the age of 18. Again, Britney, Justin, Justin Timberlake to a degree, right? NSYNC wasn't really all that sexual at first. But Britney, you had Usher, and you had many other artists. Christina. But to be fair, Christina didn't really get sexual till Dirty came out. And I think by the time Dirty came out, she was around 2021. Right? A lot of female artists tend to do that, right? Miley Cyrus did it. Ariana Grande did it. Hilary Swank did it. Right? When they hit 18, they go like uber sexual to show that they're not kids anymore. Basically, if you were on the Disney Channel, you are going to go through a period in your career when you're very young where you have a highly sexualized image. And then, of course, you have American TV shows, right? The high school drama, for example, whether it's Dawson's Creek, whether it's Buffy, or the more modern example might be Riverdale, right? Or films like Heathers or the musical for Heathers, which does sexualize teenagers, or at least touch upon teenage sex lives, right? But I think the difference in those, not to say that there isn't a disturbing element to it, but I think the difference with those is that they tend to involve teenagers who are at least 16, right? So it's like, okay, you're 2 years away from adulthood, you're a little older, right? It's usually people who are high school age, at least in story, right? And it tends to deal with teenage sexuality, right? Which I think is a bit different than sexualizing a child, right? There's a difference, in my opinion, between telling a story about a teenager and about what goes on in a teen's life and having sex be an element of that because they're growing up, they're finding out what they're attracted to, what they like and don't like, they're falling in love for the first time, they're having sexual thoughts and feelings for the first time. So, given that is the experience for many teenagers, I do understand why teenage dramas touch upon that. But there's a difference between exploring a character's life and touching upon their burgeoning love life or their sex life or their sexuality in the context of a larger story about them. And then presenting 11-year-olds as sexual beings, as sexual objects, right? In my opinion, as lust objects. Like, what? Why in the hell do you have in an in-story 11-year-old girl, probably the actual child's probably about, at least I would imagine, like 13 or something, I hope. But why in the world do you have a kid who's barely even hit puberty in these tight as sin leather pants and his crop top? It's like she doesn't even have a chest to like fill it out. Why the hell are you having a dress like this? This is the part I don't get. It's like there's a difference, like I said, there's a difference between examining and telling a coming of age story and having sexuality being a part of that coming of age story for a character or characters, and then presenting minors, especially characters who haven't even hit puberty yet, or have just barely hit puberty, as sexual beings or as sexual objects. I think that's the part that makes me disturbed and has made a lot of people disturbed, right? It's not the exploration of sexuality and everything that goes with it through a child's eyes, if you want to put it that way. It's turning that child into a sex object or a lust object. It's just like, no, can we not? Can we not, please? Now, to be fair to the trailer itself, it apparently is French. It's a French show, French film, something. So, I don't. How do I put it? I'm trying to figure out how to say it. I guess the best way I can put it is that it's not made for an American audience, first and foremost, given that it is French. Right? It's made for a French audience, first and foremost. And I don't know enough about French culture or French media to make an evaluation on those grounds, right? Because standards, sensibilities, and sensitivities, right, differ from culture to culture. What may be perfectly fine and acceptable in France might be very risqué here. What is perfectly fine and acceptable here might be very risqué in France, and so on, and so forth, right? So I'm trying to keep that in mind. The fact that again, this is not made for an American audience, and therefore is not cognizant or sensitive to American sensibilities or American sensitivities, right? But I will say, as an American, looking at it through American eyes, and this French film being released by Netflix, which is an American company, yeah, I am much disturbed. But as much as I am disturbed, I also can't necessarily say that I'm surprised, because Hollywood, and not just the movies, but Hollywood in general, has been known to sexualize kids, if we're honest, right? Or just involve kids into a very adult lifestyle way too early. I mean, you have stories from Corey Haim, you have stories from Corey Feldman, you have stories from a lot of child actors. The boy who played John Connor in Terminator, I forget his name. You have Drew Barrymore, who's been very open and honest about her experiences growing up. If you want to take it back to the 70s, you have the experiences, I think, of nearly every child actor on that show, but especially Danny Bonaducci, who I think was around 9 when he was on The Partridge Family, and because his character became so popular, he sort of became the focus, right? So he's also been very candid about what his childhood was like being a TV star, right? And then again, you have many other examples. There are examples. For example, there's a TV show, or at least there was. I don't know if it's still on, but of a show. I think it was RuPaul, the drag queen, where he was supposed to be in some movie or some TV show where he kind of has like a tag along kid type of character with him, and he's like helping to like raise the kid or bring them up, and it's like taking them to drag shows and all this weird stuff. And then there's like literal drag kids, like what's that child's name or their stage names? Like Desmond is Amazing, I think is the child's name, and I think at least last I heard about this child was around like 11 or 12 years old, and they're doing drag. Whether or not you like drag is an incredibly adult thing, right? And at least last I heard about this child, again, 11-year-old boy, doing drag, and he's dressing like Gwen Stefani, right? You know, wearing the hip hugger jeans, the crop top, exposing the belly. I'm like, you're too young for this, boy. It's like, it's one thing if you got like an 18-year-old kid doing that. It's like, okay, you know what, you're an adult, fine. But an 11-year-old boy dressing like Gwen Stefani. And then apparently, at least last I heard about this young child, apparently when he was at a drag show, he was performing at a drag show, again, dressed up as Gwen Stefani. And apparently the people in the audience, adults, grown-ups, regardless of whether or not you're in a dress and makeup, you're still an adult, are throwing dollar bills at him like he's a stripper. No! This is peak sexualization of a child. You are treating, even if you're doing it as a joke, you are treating an 11-year-old boy. I don't care what adult, grown-up singer he's impersonating at that moment. You are treating an 11-year-old kid like he's a sex performer. Right? That's what a stripper is, right? Someone who puts on a erotic dance for money. You are treating a child like an erotic performer, an erotic dancer, and you're throwing money at them. You are treating them. You're sexualizing them. You are treating them as a lust object, and you're throwing money at them. Right? There's plenty of controversy around this type of profession and behavior for adults, right? There's long been questions about how decent or moral or immoral strip clubs or other types of adult entertainment are, and how they impact how men view women and all this other stuff. And again, that's all amongst adults, again, with an adult audience. And now you're doing it to a kid who hasn't even reached the age of 13. See, this is why people get so upset. It's like, kids are going to grow up fast enough. They're going to lose their innocence fast enough. They're already, just through media in general, right, getting exposed to stuff that is way too young for them, right? Because most media really is made by adults for adults, right? So they're already, in a sense, growing up too fast and too soon. It's already too much, too fast, too soon. So why do you want to sort of add on top of all of that, right? By now taking these kids and not just exposing them to adult situations via media, but also making them the center, making them the star of this very adult content, whether it be a drag show or whether it be this film, right? Because again, it's one thing if you have a film about, say, a college dance troupe, right? Where everybody's in their 20s, supposedly, and they want to, sex it up and win the competition. And then you have a show about 11-year-olds who want to dress in leather pants and crop tops. It's like, can we not? Can we please not? Because this is creepy. This is just uber creepy. But anyway, that's the video. That's the best I've got. I'm still kind of pondering this. I might make a follow-up video. I don't know. But again, that's the vid. Please let me know what you think. And I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day, everybody.